Hello, guys. Holden Velasco here. I am a co-host of The Run. It's a podcast from Hardwood and Hollywood.com. I'm a huge sports fanatic. So I'm currently in college, but I'm pursuing a future career in sports journalism. I'm here with my friend. How are you doing today?
Doing well, doing well. Glad to have you around.
Nice, nice. So as you can see in the back, just maybe, if you're attentive, huge basketball fan. And I think one of the hottest topics in today's NBA has got to be my Brooklyn Nets. Got to have the shirt. So I want to give my opinion right now because I know there's a lot of
Even have the
differing
pennant there in the
opinions.
background. Yeah.
Oh yes, you can see it a little sneaky, a little sneaky. Um, I definitely want to talk
Mm-hmm.
about the Nets because it's a hot topic and it's widely debated. So my opinion on the big three, should we have done the trade or not? I think yes. Granted, our defense did get way worse because we gave up our best big, Jared Allen, and now DeAndre Jordan is our big, along with Jeff Green, who is not a traditional big man, though he can play the position. It works out because now you have an historic offense, historic, the best offensive rating in NBA history. The top three scorers of the NBA in the fourth quarter are big three in order. Scary hours is what Harden calls it, at least. And now in Brooklyn, I'm starting to hear a little bit of scary hours between the friends whenever, TNT switches to the fourth quarter. We look at each other when we're watching the game like, yeah, it's scary hours now. um, I think the problem with not being able to space the floor and share the ball, that just is completely debunked already. Harden's the only player in the NBA to average double-digit assists. You watch the games, it's just free-flowing offense, especially with KD when he has the ball, because everyone knows he can pull up and just shoot. But if you watch the games, you can see he's looking to pass more often than not,
Mm-hmm.
because especially with that cross court to Joey Buckets, as we call him in Brooklyn, Joe Harris, the backdoor cuts are beautiful. The cross courts are beautiful. James Harden's just, I'll put it this way, you don't appreciate James Harden as a passer until you watch him on a nightly basis.
Right.
And the Nets are not at their peak yet because I think everyone knows this team is not complete, especially when buyout market comes by. Because then you got Drummond, who's going to be probably bought out. JaVale McGee's in talks. And we just signed this, not a rookie, Powell. He hasn't really played much in the NBA, but he'll provide at least some center depth. Nicholas Claxton, again, G League prospect, but he is promising. He has a skill set. He just needs the experience. So the Nets will be better. It's a
Well,
matter of practicing.
it's funny that you started with the word historic
Mm-hmm.
because I go back, I'm a little bit older than you, just a little bit, but I go back to the ABA days when you had Dr. J, Super John Williams. Then you get to the NBA and you've got Buck Williams, Albert King.
Yeah,
Then you move a little bit forward. There's some lean years in between there. Let's just bypass
a
those.
little bit.
The Michael Ray Richardsons, the Bernard Kings, people coming and going. And you get to the Buck Williams. I'm sorry, I already did that. Buck Williams. You get to the Derek Coleman, Kenny Anderson, Kerry Kittles, that kind of that era.
Yeah.
But when you mention historic here, you're talking about a trio of players that you've never seen the like of on one team for the Nets. Now, you can add in a lot of players here and there, the Keith Van Horns and people that have jumped in and out that have been supposedly superstars.
Yeah.
But I don't think you've ever had three players of that ilk in one spot at one time with so much buildup, so much history, and then so much supposed baggage as well.
Yeah.
We'll ignore that for the moment because obviously they are as well. Is this the team that makes you say, wow, this is the Nets franchise that we've been waiting for since the ABA?
Well, I think it's tough because you have the Brooke Lopez era. He was our guy. He was the main piece. He was an absolute joy. Then you get to the Karis LeVert D'Lo era. That was the most fun basketball you've seen in a while. You know what clip I'm talking about of them dancing on the bench with Jared
Yeah.
Dudley,
Oh, yeah.
Hollis Jefferson. That was a culture, but that winning culture turned into the superstar culture. Basketball wise, this is okay. This is the Nets' time now. Granted, it might not be this season because chemistry and practicing matters. So maybe next season. Like I said, it depends on what happens with the buyouts and any trades that happen. But I think you can definitely safely say, okay, it's time now.
Okay, now looking at the big three in that trade, actually not looking at the big three, what else was important that happened in those moves? You lost people, you gained people. Who did you gain that's flying under the radar that you're actually going to say that was an important pickup?
For the James Harden trade,
Yeah.
I think it's tough to say, but I think someone that was affected by it more than gaining a player was Nicholas Claxton, because we lost that
Right.
centerpiece in Jared Allen. Many people outside of Brooklyn don't know who Claxton is. I'll put it very briefly. I'm not saying he's Kevin Durant, but he has his play style. He's 7 footer too. He's just really smooth. He's agile. He can shoot the ball. But the problem is, like when Kevin Durant, he's not Kevin Durant. He's weak. He's not a great defender, and he has to work because he doesn't have game experience. He played mostly in the G League, but with this opportunity, when he's healthy, because he is injured right now, he's going to get that burn, and he's going to show when he gets that burn that he is a player. So I think in terms of what players benefited, I think it was definitely Claxton and his potential.
And also I think Joe Harris as well. I think Joe Harris is going to be in a position where, it's kind of like being Chris Middleton in Milwaukee with Giannis. It's like things are going to flow to him because the focus is going to be elsewhere.
Yeah, there's this one play, I forget the game it was. I think it was the Heat. James Harden was bringing up the ball with like 9 seconds left. He's doing his James Harden thing, double cross between his legs. And then a defender went to go double him. But who's the defender guarding? Joe Harris. Right. So it's like you can't make a comfortable decision in that. Do you want to guard one of the best players in the NBA, the best isolation players in James Harden with 9 seconds left who can just get to the cusp easily? Or do you want to make sure that one of the best three-point shooters in the game right now is not wide open in the corner? And they ultimately chose Harden, but that's not a comfortable decision that you can make come playoff time.
Well, and like you said, it might be a comfortable decision now because it's regular season and they haven't solidified completely what they're going to do. In another couple of months, that's going to be like, and the guy's going to be standing in the middle because he's not going to know what to do. And that's going to add confusion all over the place. And as you said, as you start adding some more practices, getting some more things together, they can run more flowing stuff if that's what they choose to do. They may not choose to do that. I don't know. That's an entirely different decision that Steve Nash is going to have to come up with and Mike D'Antoni, whether they're going to actually, maybe set a ball screen or run a pick and roll or something like that. But they have those parts in place if they want to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that you bring up Nash because that is such an underrated part of this team because he's getting used to coaching himself. Right. Obviously, he has great coaches around him to help him. But at the end of the day, he's going to be one of the main shot callers, if not the main shot caller. And once he gets a feel for the team and starts learning from his mistakes, then he'll definitely be better.
Now, when you bring that up, what do you think is the strength of a former pass first, pass second, almost pass third point guard, as opposed to players that don't play that way? Not saying it's good or bad, it's just that they aren't known to play that way. Can he get them to focus that way, or does he have to adapt to them?
I think what it is he can read a defense better than most coaches because, he literally went up against that on a Hall of Fame level, two-time MVP. I mean, you can't really beat that. So what's the strength of the Nets? Offense, and obviously that's not really in question. But with Nash at the helm, he's going to break down exactly what they want to look for, as if, Harden doesn't already know. But it's more the fact of just putting it all together. So I think he adapts to the players he has. But definitely having that playing background at such the elite level that he had, it definitely helps.
Have you seen any influence with D'Antoni as well, or is that that's going to come in the future?
Definitely on the defensive side because what we do on defense is we'll play like a man, but anytime there's a pick, anything, we switch on absolutely everything. I don't like it. I genuinely hate it because we don't have the size and athleticism to do that. And that's why you see us getting killed in the paint. I think at one point, I haven't looked at the number, we were 28th in points allowed in the paint, which is obviously horrendous no matter what players we have. That's just not acceptable. I think that's one of the main things that we have to adjust to. So that's definitely what I've seen from D'Antoni, at least.
Well, that's an interesting stat because 28th in the defense in the paint in this generation, in this era of basketball, wouldn't be as deadly as 28th in the paint maybe 30 years ago. Because that would have been 50, 60, maybe 70 points, whereas here it may just be a guy driving to the hole or 3 post-ups a game. So it's not as bad as it used to be so deficient in post defense or paint defense, I guess is a better way of putting it. But you do lack that rim protector, that guy's going to say, you ain't coming in here.
Yeah, and it definitely hurts because then let's say we keep this roster the exact same. Who the hell is going to guard Embiid? Who the hell is going to guard
Right.
Jokic? And you see
Right.
what Bam Adebayo did to us, John Collins did to us. So that's
Right.
definitely going to be a big problem.
But does the philosophy, and again, not right or wrong, does the philosophy, if it doesn't matter whether the game is 85 to 83 or 142 to 139, as long as we get one more point than they do, and we know we can get points, is that the way they're looking at it? And I know that's not a great way of doing it, but when you have three guys that can get their own whenever they want to get their own, who knows? And again, like you have a Joe Harris spotted up as well.
It's funny you bring that up because I actually tweeted when the trade happened. I said, you don't have to play defense if you just outscore them. Dash, shot
Yeah.
marks, probably, which is true. But obviously, you don't want to just completely rely on your offense.
Well, you're going to have to get a stop at some point.
Exactly.
And that's the thing that I think they're missing is that one guy you say, sick him, go get him. But I think they can make that move at some point. And there are a lot of guys in the league like that are just, I'm a defensive guy. Maybe get him let's go back to, say, a Bruce Bowen or someone. It's like, stand in the corner, knock down a couple threes, but then your job is to go guard people. Can you find that guy? Or is he on the roster already?
He is. Well, not to the level that we would need. We would at least need someone else. Bruce Brown, he was on the Pistons. He was a starter. But the problem is Nash doesn't play him, which is annoying. He'll put in Lawawe Cabarro, which I think I pronounced correctly, and instead of him. It's amazing. Iron Eagle just spats it out so quickly. But Bruce Brown is a great defender, and he goes under the radar. But the thing is, he doesn't play enough. Like you look at the Cavaliers game, which hurts to bring up. Colin Sexton scored like 20 points by himself in the fourth quarter in overtime. No Bruce Brown to be seen. Nothing. The next game, Brown was all over him. Granted, Sexton still like 25, but it wasn't his almost 50-point game.
Right.
But I think we definitely need one other player on the perimeter because inside, forget it. But on the perimeter, we need at least one more person. And Shumpert, who is a defensive-minded player who we just recently signed, hopefully can be that guy, but we have to see.
Yeah, his best days are, I think, maybe a little bit past, but he hasn't been overused either. So, maybe that's something that we can look at as well. When he was with Cleveland, it's like, this guy should be playing more, but then again, where are you going to play him? That's and there's a conundrum. If you are in a normal setting and you have that defensive guy, but you need to score points, it's kind of hard to put him in the game. In this setting, when you have the Nets, you're not worried about points. So you can put somebody out there that can barely even hold on to the ball, let him go play some defense.
Yeah, definitely. I think Bruce Brown has to step up for that.
So when we're looking at – I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I hope Bruce Brown could be the person.
We're looking at how this team fits. Yeah. I think you're right. And I think that's a Steve Nash. Again, the problem that I'm not going to say problem. The thing that the coaching staffs may have a problem with is that, and I know most coaches do this. As a former coach, I do the same thing, is most of our energy is thinking, how do we put the ball in the hole? Yeah. It's usually not how do we stop them from putting the ball in the hole. That we can design defense in our sleep. That's not a problem. Especially in the NBA, it's like guard him, guard screen and roll, switch or don't switch, go over, go under. I mean, that's not a lot of thought process into that. The thought process into how do we put the ball in the hole against all of that. So I think that what they're going to have to do is come to the realization that we've got three spots where we can score. Let's get a stopper in there.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, when we're looking at how everything is still – see, I'm not sold that they're the kings of the East just because of the trade. And the reason I say that, because you still have teams looking at Miami from last year, not Miami this year, but Miami from last year. I know it was a weird season, but you have a team that kind of says, we don't buy this. These teams are better than us. We're going to go out and beat them. You look at Toronto from the year before. We don't buy the fact that these teams are supposed to be better than us. We're going to get it done. You look at Philadelphia this year. Doc Rivers has made, so far, a heck of a difference. It's like we are understanding how to play together, how to play a better brand of ball than just being disjointed what it used to be. The Celtics are still good. The Bucks still look like they could be decent. And you've got a couple other teams that could be okay. As the new beast of the East, do they want to play from ahead, or is it okay just like, let's just go out and beat teams as we beat them? I'm not sure that there's there's a question in there someplace. Let me get to it. You just keep looking at it as how do we attack things as a new team in the middle of the season?
And we're gonna have a target on our back no matter who we're playing. So I think you just have to play, okay, let's get the next one. And I think that goes for any team, no matter if you're a good or bad team. But that's especially true when every team in the league is looking at you. So you just got to go game by game.
Okay. So how do we go about that?
I think because, like I said, it's tough with barely practicing because,
Right.
again, practicing is the backbone. That's your safe haven, let's say. I think you have to adjust from game to game. You have to stop thinking about, oh, forget that Cleveland lost. That's behind us. Let's move on to the Philadelphia 76ers. Okay, Nash, who do we have to guard? And then you go into that. It's tough to do, especially, like I said, with everyone looking at you. But if you're able to do that, then you'll be great.
Okay. Now, looking at the league as a whole, let's say we get out of the East. Do we match up well with the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nuggets, the Jazz? I mean, we're operating on the assumption the Lakers are going to win the West, but it's altogether possible they don't. What are the other matchups that you're concerned with and from the West side?
I think obviously with Lakers, you have to think Anthony Davis. I mean, that's just a no-brainer. He can easily put 50 on us. LeBron James is always a pain to guard. But with our defense, that's an special problem. The Clippers, granted, we just beat them. Um, but you can't rely on that every night because if we can't sweep them, and if any Nets fan says that, that's not true. You look at the game,
Right.
we were down most of the game, and then scary hours happened. The Jazz, again, though Gobert is definitely not an offensive-minded player, he can definitely get it done in the paint, especially against us with Spider Mitchell dropping dimes to him. But I think definitely the Lakers bring the most problem, which is not surprised because then you look at the bench too. You have Montrezl Harrell coming off the bench, and he's just an energy monster in the paint. But the Lakers, without question, are the scariest team, especially with Anthony Davis.
Okay, so we've got a kind of, I guess, a foregone conclusion, even though it's not really true, that we've got the Nets versus the Lakers in the final. Let's just assume that happens. Okay, what's the outcome of that series?
Right now, if we don't make any trades, no buyouts, nothing, we're losing. I think we take two
Okay.
games. Just on pure offense, we take two games, but we cannot contain Anthony Davis for a whole series.
Okay, but if we have, and it's proven to be so far, a healthy Durant, who can contain Durant?
It's a give and take, you know what I mean? Because then you have the LeBron and KD going at each other, so that's even per se. Who's really going to guard Anthony Davis? Jeff Green? I mean, no. I mean, as much as I
Sure.
love Jeff Green, no. But then the problem is, okay, now you have Harden and Kyrie. That's where if they're on and they just score the ball and everyone just scores the ball, defense per se doesn't matter as much, but we would need to be putting up like 150, 160 to win games against them.
And that's where you get your two games from. We're going to get two games where we're just on fire and we can't be checked, but there are going to be 3 or 4 other games where it's like we just can't defend anybody.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's look at the league as a whole, because the pandemic has messed things up quite a bit in everybody's lives, not just the NBA. And we've got the All-Star flap and all that going on right now. But let's look at the positive end of things. We've had a number of players come to the league in the last 2 or 3 years. Just looking at the second year, third year guys that have had to suffer through this pandemic. Who's going to come out of this looking good? Teams and players, if and when we get out of it.
Yeah, so I think one of the players that suffered the most from the whole COVID thing has to be the Raptors. I mean, you look at the bubble, they were just through hell. And then they get back up to Toronto thinking they have a rest, and then what, 1 week, week and a half later, they have to go all the way down to Tampa Bay to
Right.
practice. So that's something that's not really talked about as much because they've been going through hell again with no practicing. Granted, almost no team is practicing, and they're just overburning. So I think they will definitely come out better once they actually get some rest.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah. And then what sucks is we're not seeing the magic of like Tyler Hero, Jamal Murray. We don't see that magic anymore. Maybe they can pick it up again. Granted, obviously it didn't go into complete slump, but it's still something that is not there that we thought we would see.
Do you think that's because we've seen them, other teams have seen them? Tyler Hero is no longer a secret.
I think that can be a case, but I think it's more of the Miami Heat were dogs and that the bubble was kind of built for them,
Right.
especially Tyler Hero. Because if you didn't watch him in high school, because I loved watching him in high school. I was a mixtape fan, so I knew who he was when he got drafted. I'm like, oh, that's cool. But the NBA as a whole, you don't really game plan against him. But
Right.
after the bubble, you can see what he can do. It's like, okay, we have to guard this guy this way.
Okay. And I'm looking at players like, either one of the Ball brothers, which one comes out of this looking good and which one doesn't come out of this looking good. And I think it's too early to throw dirt on either one of them, but also it's an interesting way of looking at the world now from the basketball perspective. You have to perform right away because there's another slew of guys, especially if we're looking at shorter drafts, more players coming in, guys that are trying to get out of college that didn't get to go to class and whatnot. I'm assuming you're going to have a lot more one and dones than we've ever had before.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they may not be better players, but they still have that reputation. So instead of it being maybe, a dozen or so, I think we're going to see an entire first and more second round of guys that are almost all one and dones. Because why would I play in college? I can't even go to school.
Yeah, no,
So that's going to press these draft classes that have happened the last couple of years to even perform quicker because there's going to be a slew more young guys. Like, you're now a vet in your second year. It's put up or shut up time.
Yeah, definitely. And you didn't really see that before. Like you would have people say all 4 years. Like you look at Tim Duncan, he stayed all 4 years. LeBron James was a complete anomaly at that point. I mean, granted, he still is, but like in just pure age wise and performing, that was just something you could never really imagine.
Well, now you mentioned Tyler Hero, seeing him play as in high school. I actually saw LeBron play as a sophomore. I'm from that area. I'm from Ohio, so I saw him play against Oak Hill as a sophomore in a made for whatever event in Columbus, Ohio. And on that team, on that Oak Hill team, were guys that played at Kentucky, guys that played at Arizona, and guys that played all over the place. And Desanya Diop, who the Cavs drafted number 6 or number 7, like 3 months after that game was played, or 4 months after the game, or whatever it was. And you're thinking from the opening tip, like, that kid from Akron is better than everybody. I mean, it wasn't even a question. This sophomore is better than these guys. And, you know who's being recruited by whom. You know who's planning on going wherever. You hear the rumors that the 7-footer from Oak Hill is thinking about going pro, out of high school. And you're like, but he's the best player. And then as you follow him as he's going, it's like, yeah. Now, you didn't expect him to become a big muscular beast. As a skinny teenager, he was still phenomenal. So it's interesting that you mentioned Tyler Hero because we have that going on now. And I mentioned this on another show a few days ago. Has it changed? You mentioned going back to the guys that played, Tim Duncan that played 4 years. Has basketball changed, NBA and college, to the point where it's more, we were railing about AAU. I don't have a problem with AAU. Well, I have a little problem with AAU, but the difference between going to high school, being taught by a high school coach, going to college, being taught by a college coach, and then becoming do we have to accept that the players that we get in the NBA aren't ready to play primetime NBA minutes at this point?
I think that's another tough question because you can't really adjust to trends as much. I think we're going to have to accept it because players as individuals, they don't see the benefits of college as much because if you know,
Right.
okay, I'm going to end up in the NBA one day, why do I want to stay all 4 years at college? There's no benefit to that, especially if they are truly a talented player. So I think even if we suffer through, oh, this guy's going to be great. Oh, he only put up 6 points in his rookie year. I think you have to deal with it for now. Maybe something changes like the G League now that they're letting people come
There
out of
you go.
high
That's what I was going to
school,
ask. Right.
like Jalen Green. Like I'm a huge fan of him. Dude's just a monster. I think that's something that's great because not only do we have to skip through the kind of annoying 1 year and done process, they can go straight against people who have past NBA players and people aspiring to be there, but legitimate pros on a stage that isn't in China, Australia, where people don't really look as much. People will watch the G League if an interesting former high school prospect is playing, and I think that benefits the league as well.
Well, that was a question I was going to ask because you're looking at people doing that more, and the NBA has kind of said, in my opinion, and I don't know if this is the plan or not, let's kind of bypass college a little bit, setting up their junior programs, the junior NBA, that kind of stuff. It's like, we're going to get people in our pipeline. And I don't know if this is actually what they're planning on doing. I have no conspiracy theory here, but we're getting people in our pipeline. And if they don't want to go to college, we have the G League for them. And I think what you noticed when teams started putting, instead of having the G League team, say for Chicago, 2 states away, now it's 2 blocks away. We can keep an eye on things. They can train here. There's a lot more of control of the G League. So you're looking at teams saying, and I think the NBA is saying down the road, and again, this is just me saying it, that if you don't want to play in college, we have an alternative.
Yeah.
We can get you there quicker because, like you said, you're playing against grown men now, and you don't have to go play in Lithuania or Australia. You can go play here and figure out what's going on. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it benefits the players, but the thing that it hurts is the colleges, obviously. So that's a balancing act. I think, like I said, it definitely, without question, benefits the athletes, so they can shine, or just people can see, oh, they're not that player. Like, let's say Jalen Green goes in and he does terrible, which he won't, but let's just say that.
Right.
Then we could say, okay, he's not a real prospect. As if he was averaging 20 points in college, then he comes in and then a team picks him 3rd overall, and then they get screwed over. So I think it can help the teams and the players, but it definitely hurts the colleges without question.
Well, I did a video years ago, and I just posted it a couple weeks ago, the history of the NBA draft lottery. And if you go back to 1985 and you go through the lottery, and I asked this, I'm not trying to pick at you, I'm just asking a question. How many number 1 picks since 1985 have won an NBA ring with the team that drafted them?
I could not tell you. What is it?
3.
Really? Wow.
David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Kyrie Irving. And you can make the case that if David Robinson didn't get hurt, they wouldn't have got the San Antonio wouldn't have been able to be in the lottery and wouldn't have been able to draft Tim Duncan. So you could maybe take David Robinson away from that. You could also make the case if Tim Duncan didn't have David Robinson, maybe he wouldn't have won 1 or 2 of his rings. You can also make the case that Kyrie Irving, if LeBron hadn't come back from Miami, may not have won a ring with Cleveland. So really, there's only one, if you really want to make the case for the stand-up, that this guy would have won without any other help, would have been Tim Duncan. Now,
Wow.
If you extrapolate that to the number of lottery picks that have won a ring with the team that drafted them, just hazard a guess.
So the best percentage, 3, the 3rd overall.
I didn't break it down that way, but I just went from the entire lottery. 16 lottery picks have won a ring with the team that drafted.
Oh, I thought you were saying which pick did the best.
Yeah. No, well, that's another thing. That's a show coming up. So
that was my guess. Story.
But it's the idea of, yeah. Well, and the if you go back 10 years before the lottery, go back to 1974. Again, it's a whole different era of basketball. But you had 4 number 1 picks in that 10 years, and I forgot the number, but a number of lottery picks as well. Bill Walton and not Michael Thompson, Magic Johnson, and so on and so forth. But again, it's just a different way of looking at it. Basketball is different back then. The point of the story is that as we get younger in the league, and just what you said is you go to the G League accepting players might be more beneficial because you get to see that player play against other professional players. It's kind of hard to gauge what a guy is going to do in the NBA when he has to play, no offense, St. Bonaventure once or twice a season, and maybe go to play ODU once or twice a season, even though he might be playing and make that extrapolation sometimes. So, it's easy to see when a guy's played in the league for a few years, then you trade for him, say a Chauncey Billups or someone who played in a couple different teams, but you got tape on him, you've seen him play in the league, then you pick him up and your team wins a title from there. But it's just a way of looking at it. So, but you brought us to that of saying, hey, let's look at what's going on in the G League. Maybe that's another option of getting an experienced player on our roster.
Yeah, definitely. I think it benefits, like I said, the teams will be a great beneficiary, and the athletes will too.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this question as a Nets fan in the New York metropolitan area. Right now, we're gonna start larger and squeeze it in. Who's the most
Okay.
popular sports franchise in the New York metropolitan area?
Man. I'll break it down slowly. No, fine. I'll give a completely general answer. It has to be the Yankees. It has to be the
Okay,
Yankees.
for good reason. For good
Yes.
reason.
Yes. One of the easily
Okay,
the winning
all right,
team.
yeah, and it's an iconic franchise. They don't screw up that often. When they do, they usually come back with something that works. Love them or hate them, yeah, the evil empire is the Red Sox face. Okay, where do the Nets fit in that pecking order now, or in the near future?
They are the hottest rising team by far. I think right now the top two would have to be Yankees and the Knicks, but I think the Nets make a case for third, fourth because the football teams are just that bad. Um,
Right.
but the Jets obviously in talks for Deshaun Watson that can maybe change, but right now I think the Nets have a case for third or fourth, whereas they were definitely maybe like sixth, something like that before.
Okay. So you brought me to the next point. Nets, Knicks. Knicks are still more popular, you think?
They are more popular just because they are the homegrown team. Because we have bounced around between
Okay.
New York, New Jersey, back and forth all the time.
Okay. Now I'm not from there, so that's a big difference between New Jersey, Brooklyn. That is a big difference for New Yorkers.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, because the Knicks have been less than successful for the last lifetime of some people, um, is it possible for the Brooklyn Nets, not New Jersey Nets, Brooklyn Nets, to overcome the Knicks if they have the success that it looks like they're going to have?
It's tough because what is that? Just 2 years, 3 years of winning, and then we go back to just mediocrity because we don't have our first round pick until
Well,
2027. So we can't get anything from there. But the Knicks, it's like we've been here for God knows how long. Granted, they've been terrible for, like you said, people's lifetimes, but it's just they've been there for so long. It's just generations are being passed on of Knicks fans. I don't think it's going to happen unless we can make a true dynasty.
okay. This was the question that you asked between Cubs and White Sox, Lakers, Clippers. The Clippers said, we're going to be the best team in LA. It's like, doesn't really mean you're going to be the most popular team in LA, which doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. If you want to ring, you want to ring. But my thinking, and again, not from there, I'm from some little podunk Midwest town in Ohio that we don't even have the single A baseball team. But the concept of it being, can Sean Marks turn this into, I wouldn't go dynasty, but to the point where we stay up here and then maybe we dip to here. Whereas if the Knicks are consistently down here off the screen, can we be the team of New York?
If we not even like let's say we're not a dynasty, if we can stay within that top 3, 5 playoff teams where the Knicks are still downwards, then I think maybe. Because the problem is it's just the Knicks have been passed on from generation to generation within all families. So I think it's possible, but it would definitely have to look back at that in maybe 10 years because the
Okay.
Knicks culture is just so ingrained within the New York area.
Well, we ask ourselves the question when we're out here, and I was asked the same question of, for years of being a Cavs fan or a Browns fan or an Indians fan, like, how is that possible? Well, in my head, it's just what I grew up with. So that's what I follow. But when you have options when you're in New York, how do you justify or how do you ask the question of a Knicks fan? You're a Knicks fan, but you got the Nets over here. You can cheer for them. Hell, you can go cheer for the Rangers. Why would you cheer for this team? And so you say the answer to that is it's been passed down from generation to generation to generation, and that's what they're going to be regardless.
Yeah, that's definitely it.
Okay, well, I understand that being a fan of teams in Cleveland that were bad for decades, and even when they got good, it's like this year with the Browns. Well, what do you think of the Browns? Like, I think they're better than they were before. They made the playoffs. Mm-hmm. That's a good thing. You take it with a grain of salt. You're not like, can you think they can make the Super Bowl? Well, slow down here a little bit, buddy. Let's not get too carried away. Let's be happy they got to where they were and we don't go to the stadium with bags on our head. So, all right. So looking at how, okay, let's take a walk along the wall here. Let's start with the from where I'm seeing the upper left hand corner is Steph Curry. Or actually,
Yes.
what's the one to his left?
The one to his left,
What's the yellow jersey to his left?
that is my personal jersey. I have some of my personal basketball jerseys back there too.
Okay.
So from Steph Curry
Okay.
this way
So
is
obviously
actual
that's
NBA
your favorite player.
Yes, it is.
Okay, but the one to Steph's left is your favorite player. Okay, gotcha. So let's get a little breakdown of those guys and why they're on your wall. Let's start with Steph Curry,
Steph
the
Curry, I
Golden
got
State
that.
Steph Curry.
Yes,
Why is he
Golden
on your
State
wall?
Steph Curry. Yes. I got that. When did I get that? I got that probably, I think it was it the I think it was the 73 and 9 season. I wanted to get the jersey of probably someone who changed the game forever because you just can't argue that he hasn't. I mean, now it's just three-pointing is basketball. So I think he was just such a pivotal player in the league. I had to get his jersey. Next would be Michael Jordan, UNC. I think that one's self-explanatory. Obviously, I could
Well,
get a
it's not because you have the UNC one, not the Bulls one. So what's the difference? Or it's just the one you're able to get?
I like that one better because it was him from the beginning. Because with Curry, obviously he was always a good player, but with Michael Jordan, he was just different. From the beginning, he was always just completely special. I think the UNC represents the beginning, and the story of him. He always wears his UNC shorts underneath his Bulls shorts and
Right.
his Wizard shorts. So I think having that is also just a moment for that because he wears the UNC all the time too.
I saw something with James Worthy, and James Worthy is consensus All American. Ends up being the first player taken in the draft after his junior. I'm sorry, and he's North Carolina's tradition rich, and he's the next guy in that line. Him, Sam Perkins, Jimmy Black. They've got a very talented veteran team coming back, and James Worthy says I was the best player on that team for about 3 weeks, and I realized this kid can play. So for James Worthy, and James Worthy, Hall of Famer, top 50 all time, to say, for 3 weeks and this freshman comes in, it's like, that's it. I'm no longer the best player on this team is astounding to me. Not that he would admit it, but that it actually happened. Okay. I've mentioned my LeBron story. You got LeBron with the Cavs.
Yes, I do. I think it's just he left, then he came back. I'm coming home, and then he finally delivered on his promise to bring a championship to Cleveland. I think I had to go with the Cleveland jersey. Granted, he was great, obviously, in Miami, and now with the iconic Lakers, but the Cleveland one, that's always just going to be different.
I'll tell you how that played out on our end. A buddy of mine said, they're playing Golden State in the finals at Golden State. And that's the game where Cleveland clinches the final. And we went to Cleveland to watch the game in Golden State in the arena in Cleveland. We had actually bought tickets to watch it in the arena, and the game wasn't even in town. It's on the other coast. Now, we didn't actually ever make it. We went to some sports bar down the street, watched it there. After they won, because he said, I want to be in Cleveland when it happens. Like, okay, sure, that's crazy in my mind, but okay. We're watching it on TV. We can watch it any place. After they won, the streets were closed for fans running up and down the street. People actually were hugging police officers on horses because everything was great. It was fantastic. So, yeah, that was one of the most incredible things to happen because just a few short years, they were burning his jersey.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I mean, it
that's
was like, we hate him, but he came back and made it work. Okay. Is that KD, the one next to Pistol?
yes, that is a Kevin Durant with the Coogee.
Okay.
I think that one's self-explanatory. The best player to wear Nets jersey, and who knows how long, debatably of all time. Just player-wise, obviously legacy-wise, you think of Dr. J, obviously, but right now, just the best player to put on a Nets jersey. I had to get one, especially the white. The white looks so clean with the Biggie Coogee, in my opinion. I
Yep.
think it's the best one. I know you liked the Pistol one. You pointed that one out, Pistol Pete, because it's the most unique one there. And you think, wait, why is he there with LeBron James and Michael Jordan? I absolutely fell in love with Pete Maravich watching his highlight tapes. No 3-point line, still the best scorer in college history. You look
hands
what he
down.
did, and oh yeah, not even close. He averaged what 44.2 points a game.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, not even close. He still holds the all-time record for most points. I just loved his style of play. I tried to model my game after him. Granted, that didn't work, but I still, I still just loved his style of play, and I love just mentioning to people who don't really know about him. Because if he had a
Oh man,
3-point line, oh my god, forget it. Because
he'd average 60.
oh yeah, easily, and the NBA too. Just forget about it. He's definitely one of my favorite
Now
players just to watch.
here's the thing I said. I said this on the air a few days ago or a week ago, and I got crucified for it, and rightfully so. Pistol Pete is one of my favorite players to watch play. Maybe top 5, easily top 10. And I was asked the question about Hall of Fame and all that, the top 50, and if we're going to try and extend it to the top 100 or whatever. And I said, okay, who's in and who's out? You know, you got to bring guys in that have played in the last, Kobe, for example, those kind of guys that have played in the last 25 years. Who do you take out?
I
And
don't
I
know.
said, well, there are a few guys that there are a few guys that that just may not make the cut when it expands because there might be more than 25 guys or 50 guys that come in. I said, well, if it's the NBA Hall of Fame, and I got just killed for this, I take out Bill Walton and I take out Pete Maravich. And I got killed for Pete Maravich. I said, no. If we're talking the Naismith Hall of Fame, without a doubt. And as much as I love Pistol, his NBA career didn't match up to a lot of people. Having said that, he is still phenomenal talent, a phenomenal player, one of my favorite players to watch play. But, he not only did he not win rings, he didn't really set the world on fire for his entire career. Reasons for that, obviously. But it's just that maybe it's living up to expectations. I don't know, but it was just he didn't do what I would think you needed to do to be in the Hall of Fame. Having said that, I'll sit down here and I'll watch a Pete Maravich highlight film or an entire game anytime, any place, anywhere. So it's a contradiction, but I love Pistol. I just didn't think that his NBA career was on par with some of the people that have made that on order. Well,
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I mean, obviously it's tough to judge because the game has
yeah,
changed. And like I said, if he had a 3-point line, obviously his numbers would be much higher because reports of people who watched him live said he would be shooting from 3-point line easily.
oh, easily, yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
I think it's
Okay,
it's it's not blasphemous. I'll put it that way.
okay. It's close though. Even when I hear it, it's close. But all right. So who else do you want on that wall?
Oh, it's tough, but I think someone who can contend to be on there, Doncic, Luka Doncic. You watch him, oh my God, he's a spectacle to watch. He's a great person. That's one of the things you have to be a great
Right,
person to be on the wall. And he's just so joyous. I mean, he's look like Jokic. He's another great person, great player.
right, right.
Change the game. They can change the game. That's one of the things too. You have to change the game. I think Doncic at the end of his career will definitely be there. I might buy a Kobe jersey too, because that one's self-explanatory. But I think really those are the two main ones. Three, I'll include Jokic. Three main players I'm looking to add there. But I'll go really young. I think LaMelo might have a chance to be on there because he was another player I watched in high school, like Trey Young, like I said before, Hero. And if LaMelo is able to go to that level that people think he can, then I think he could definitely be up there because watching them back in Chino Hills when he was a freshman playing with
Right,
Alonzo,
right.
that's such a keystone memory in my head. I mean, I can still hear the intro music from Ball is Life playing when I think about Chino Hills. So I think LaMelo is probably a dark horse if everything goes well for him.
Okay. All right. On it's not my wall, but in my closet right now, I just came up with a Dominique Wilkins and old school Buffalo Braves Bob McAdoo.
Wow.
So, and that will also tell you how old I am. But also, those guys were just, and it's funny because I ended up being a better defensive player than offensive player, but those guys could put the ball in the hole against anybody. So McAdoo was just insane. We were stationed in a Plattsburgh Air Force Base when it existed when I was real little, and so we got to see the ABA Buffalo Braves. And it's just like, how do you stop this guy? Now, he wasn't really going to stop anybody else, but he could. He just didn't have to because he's averaging 30 a game. So, that's way back in the day. So, and I also noticed the Everlast glove up there. Who's that signed by?
Oh, that is signed by the best boxer of all time, Manny Pacquiao.
Okay.
Gotta have it.
Oh, we'll have to have that conversation. Um, we'll get you out of here on this story. Again, this is supposed to be me interviewing you, but I'm telling you more about me. My buddy called me up on a Saturday night, and he said, "Are you watching the fight?" I'm like, "What fight?" I watch fights all the time, but I'm not watching the night. It's like, it's on HBO. You got to watch this. HBO After Dark, I think it was. You got to watch this. Like, all right, what are you talking about? There's this guy, I'm not sure how he says his name. He's fighting Juan Manuel Marquez, and he's killing him in the first round. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, sure, whatever. No, really, trust me, you got to watch this. So I flip it over, and it's tail end of the first round. And as soon as I see the screen, straight left, down the middle, Marquez, boom. That's like the third knockdown of the first round. And I'm like, I call him back, like, why are you having me watching this? This guy's getting killed. It's like, yeah, but Marquez is tough. Like, how tough could he be? He's just getting his butt kicked, right? So he tells me, you got to watch the rest of the fight. So I watch the rest of the fight. Marquez pretty much wins the rest of the fight, ends up being a draw after being a 10-6 or 10-7 first round. Okay, we've got a new guy to watch now. And it wasn't Marquez, it's Pacquiao. So we've been in on the Pacquiao train since the outset. And I don't know if I want to go best, but most exciting, I'll go there. And even at this age, he's still, you ask the question, and I'm asking you the question, do you want to see him fight again for his own benefit or for his own safety? Or is it just you're so entertained, yeah, I got to watch him fight again?
So I think if it's up to him, if he feels good to go, which he does, I trust him with that because no one knows him better than himself. I'm sure you heard the rumors of his next opponent, Garcia, which is a whole nother spectacle in itself. But if Pacquiao is ready to go, then I'm all for it because I want to see a Pacquiao fight live because I'm a more recent boxing fan. Um, and I've never been able to see him fight live. So like I didn't see Thurman, I didn't see Floyd because I wasn't watching boxing then.
Right.
But now I am. I'm dying to see him live. Like I saw Mike Tyson fight and Roy Jones Jr. fight before Manny Pacquiao, which is weird to think about.
We've posted a few things on our website. If you want to take a look, we did post that Pacquiao Marquez first fight after they fought like 17 times after that, whatever. Take a look at that. Ignore our commentary if you want, because our suggestion is always watch the fight without the announcers. And I've got a few announcers we've talked to. They're going to hate me for this, but it gives you an idea of what your eyes are seeing, not what someone else is telling you. Now, we've had a chance to have a couple of the great commentators on our shows. And when I kind of intimate that and I go, well, you're talking to me about boxing. You're telling people not to listen to me talk about boxing. Like, yeah, kind of. But you get a different flavor if you just watch it and don't hear it. And then you go back later, or, if you see it live with the commentary, then watch it. It was suggested, that you watch it again without the commentary just so you get an idea. And to me, it's fantastic. That is one you'll watch the whole fight and you'll go, I see what they're talking about. This was crazy. So we got a couple other things on there you might like as well. So Holden, I've got to run. I got another show to do. I appreciate you being on. I wish that I would have been able to ask more questions instead of talk about more stuff. It's what I do, unfortunately, and I've been in this rut in the last few days where I run my mouth more than I ask questions. I'm trying to get out of that. I would love to have you back again to talk about some other stuff as the season progresses and as we see if the Nets actually can overtake the Knicks in popularity in New York. So do me a favor, tell people where to find you, your podcast and Twitter and all that stuff.
Yeah, so you can look us up on YouTube. The podcast is called The Run, but the YouTube is called Hardwood and Hollywood, which is a complex media partner, which I am the managing editor for. So you can check that out. If you need help for some fantasy sports, shit, I do that too. Nerdfantasysports.com. And I think that's where you can find my work the best. But definitely, if you like the Nets talk, you have to check out The Run again, Hardwood and Hollywood on YouTube.
Okay, thank you, sir. Like I said, we will touch base with you later, and enjoy your day. I'm glad that you woke up and you're ready to roll.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
All right, thanks.